How is it going? Joshua Thompson here, talking about AI search. I want to go through and talk about, where are we in AI? How does AI search work? How much should you be panicked about it? And, what is the future? What's my look? Where do I think we're going with this, and what's going to change? Now, this is ever evolving, but I think it's good to understand how AI works, especially locally for any business. So let's jump into this. I titled this AI, the rise of AI, local SEO is dead. Long live local SEO. Obviously, this is the year 2025 where SEO is dead and everyone buys stuff from the phone book again, right? So AI is killing SEO and the internet. So that was a joke. Can't tell it's a joke, whatever. So how does local AI search work? Let's take a look here. And I started with this screenshot here that I think is interesting. Just this idea of how AI is doing. This is actually the process of me doing some AI searches and looking at the results, right? We can see it kicks off some searches. It looks at some of the websites, and then it gathers some information from maps. And this is Google's AI. But right there, that gives us some really interesting information that we'll continue to discuss. Just make sure I'm recording here. So here is just some proof that I know what I'm talking about a little bit. Here's a AI search with me showing up number 2. Here's a chat GPT search with me showing up number 2. And then here is actually where I am showing up on this search, which is number 3, right? And number 2 out of the actual local businesses, right? With Clutch being an aggregator up there at the top result. Here's another client of mine, right? A gutter and roofing company. Here's them showing up number 1 for their search on Google AI, on chat showing up number 1 for their search here, and on actual Google Maps showing up number 1 for their search. And then here's them showing up number 1 for their search in organic listings. So I give you this to show you and discuss what is happening here, right? What is actually happening with AI search? Well, here is me pulling from chat exactly what it did to get those results. So as you can see, what AI is doing is it's taking the search we've done and it's compiling a bunch of similar searches together and then giving us a result based on what shows up in those searches. So it really is just doing, what the searcher would normally do, but instead of one search, it's spreading it across and aggregating that information. So if anything, now instead of having to show up for one search, we have to make sure we show up for multiple searches if we want to show up in the AI SEO results. So, chat GPT says that it's neutral and people wonder, where do I have to rank if I want to rank in chat? Well, there's 2 important studies here from Search Engine Land on how chat simply uses Google. Here's number 1, this article here about using Google. Here's another one where chat GPT is simply using Google, which is basically telling us that if we want to rank locally on AI search, we need to, number 1, rank on Google for multiple searches related to our business in the local area. Number 2, rank on Google Maps for potentially multiple searches in our local area. And then we need relevant content to rank pages with on these results. Now, the content, I'm not getting too deep into this, but I do think there's an interesting element here that you can also sway the content that AI puts out there about your business with something like a 15-second elevator pitch that you put on your website, right? If I put on my website, we've done 10,000 roofing installations or whatever, 10,000 5-star reviews, whatever it is about us. If you put that information on your site in a lot of places, the AI will pick that up. You can kind of influence what it says, especially if you have these really strong 15-second, as I call them, like elevator pitch pieces of content that you kind of use over and over again. But that's just kind of what shows up, right? So how do we rank higher in AI? And this is what I call don't step in the crap. There is a lot out there right now that's trying to sell fear and complexity because that's how people get you to spend money. But that doesn't mean it's going to be results for you. And this has been happening for a long time, right? Things like website speed, schema, AEO, GEO, they're just ways to overcomplicate what you need to do to rank on Google and now on AI. But they're not big ranking factors. In fact, you should really be able to understand SEO pretty simply, because SEO is actually relatively easy to understand. It's just time consuming to implement well. Otherwise, understanding SEO should be very simple to do. And this is how I explain it, right? This is my October method that I like to use just to break everything down into what works to rank my business higher locally. So OCTBR, October, optimize everything. Make sure you have the right keywords and the right Google business profile name, and you have the right, categories, all that optimizing, right? Making sure your site speed isn't so slow that people don't want to be there, but, optimizing your website and your Google business profile. 2 is content, targeted content, targeted around specific searches. Once again, if I want to show up for roofing in Boise, well, I better have content on my website about roofing in Boise, or there's no way I'm going to show up for that search. Similarly here, you need to know, or somebody needs to know, what searches you are trying to rank for and creating content around those searches so that you can rank, right? You're not going to be able to rank without targeted content. Then comes the process that takes time and is what separates those who rank from those who don't. Backlinks and reviews. Backlinks and reviews, backlinks and reviews, right? This is how you build authority. This is how you build trust. This is what shows customers and Google that you are a solid business, right? It really is what separates everyone. No one wants to believe that backlinks and reviews matter so much, but they do, right? They're typically what separates the top from the bottom, right? In any market. So cool. When's it time to panic? Maybe it's starting to get close to the time to panic, but to me, look, here's one business. They had 7 visitors from chat over a 30-day period. Here's another. They had 2 visits from chat, and I can't even tell you that half of these or all of these aren't me, right? So I think, you have to look at where your customers are and then spend money on those platforms kind of equivalently to where they are at. So you can be preparing for AI. And look, I'm starting to see much more come from AI, even over the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks. More leads, more traffic. It is happening, right? But it's not even anywhere near what you're going to get from Google Maps or even Google Search. The nice thing is by doing what you need to do on Maps and Search, you're going to be naturally preparing yourself for AI. So you don't even really have to spend on AI specifically if you're covering your other bases with Maps and with Search. So go where your customers are at, right? So what should you do? What should a local business be doing right now? Stacking reviews, building authority with backlinks, and creating content, making sure you have that content around your business, right? Targeted content. That is what matters. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. And that's what I'll end with is look, Google has already gone through so many iterations of how to filter out garbage from the good, the helpful, right? Now, not everything that ranks is the best, but it's authoritative. Those websites often have strong backlinks, they build trust. On maps, they have reviews, right? This has come through a process of iteration and finding ways to get out the riffraff. So, in my mind, it doesn't matter if somebody starts a new search engine or a new AI engine, they are going to find their way back to this place and then continue to iterate, right? How do we get to a point where you trust websites? Well, okay, what about websites and how much they mention other websites? What if good websites mentioning other websites makes them seem more trustworthy? Right. That's where backlinks come from. Reviews on your Google profile, right? All of these things have come through iterations, and I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. So if you want to prepare for AI, these are the things you want to do. Hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions or you want to talk more about this or anything doesn't make sense, feel free to reach out to me, Josh at brightbeamseo.com. Otherwise, I look forward to getting more from AI in the next few years and seeing where all this leads. I think it's a quite interesting time to be an SEO and to be a small business owner. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And that's all I got. See you later. Peace.